Good morning, everyone. I just want to get to a quick temperature check. Who is working in the field of UI UX? So you're working in the field of UI UX, you too? Okay, so I'm getting more. Yeah, this is more stressful right now. No, I'm joking. My background is more of an engineer background, but I'm the UI and UX lead on the protocol that I'm building. It's called APWine Finance, so you can see here. And what we do is building a new financial derivative on DeFi. So it's called the yield tokenization. And maybe we'll go a little bit into detail into what it does, but it's not the topic of today's workshop. Who is working in the field of Web3 or crypto? Okay, cool, nice. So we have still a little bit of people to onboard yet, but that's really cool. So okay, let's talk about simplifying UX flows in Web3 decentralized applications. First, we need to define what is UX, what is UI. There's a little bit of difference, and for people who are new to the field, it may not be obvious. So user experience, on the one hand, is everything that defines the experience that a user may have using your protocol or your application, your product in general. So that may be defining which persona is going to use your protocol, your application, how you are going to display the information, which information you're going to display. You shouldn't display too much information. You shouldn't overload the user with too much info, but keep it quite simple and very straightforward. And then you have the wireframing, the scenarios, so really defining a user path, from the very second the website enters your, takes the product into his hand, what they do from A to Z to complete an action. This is the user experience. Now, the user interface, on the other hand, is what you see. It's basically, everything visual, from the typography to the color theory, really the experience, the visual experience of it. So quite a bit of difference here. We're not going to go too much into UI, but more into the UX side of things. So really, how do you define an efficient user scenario, an efficient experience, especially in a Web3 decentralized application where we will see it together. There are quite shortcomings of Web3 right now, which make the experience a little bit more complex for the regular user. So we're going to see in the next few, minutes, we're going to discuss what is the real impact of UX and how it's going to affect not only your users, but also your product as a whole. So your community and your investors and all of these people. It is it's often an aspect that is overlooked, especially in Web3, and we're going to discuss it later, but there's still a lot of work to be done in Web3 UX, and that's why even with my engineering background, I'm trying as much as possible to share content with you guys, and we can maybe have a discussion on this workshop. So what does bad UX do in the first place? Well, bad UX makes your application unusable. Basically, there is so this is not a good UX because you can't see the text, but if you go to this website, it's called User in Your Face. It's a website, very funny thing. They basically made a form that is very simple, and you need to fill it as quick as possible. And you will see that because it's intentionally bad, it makes it very, very hard to fill it quickly. So basically, if you want to put your date of birth, well, they're going to start from the 1900, right? So you're going to have to scroll down to your date. This is an example of bad UX. Another example is entering your phone number with a slider, which obviously moving just one pixel will move thousands of phone numbers. So it's literally the worst UX there can be. But it's pretty funny to talk about it. So bad UX can also make your user do things that they did not intend to do, and that can be very bad, especially in Web3 where you're not just playing with a Facebook account, you're playing with your money sometimes. I mean, in DeFi specifically. So if you're making a user, type an input or something, and then the UX is not well designed and they're going to do something that they didn't want to do, they can potentially lose money. So it can be a very expensive problem. There's this quote, I don't remember exactly, but it said that even though UX is expensive in terms of development cost, you need to hire designers, you need to have the specific people to work on it. But the cost, the opportunity cost of not having it is even worse because you're going to really impact your users and they could lose a lot of trust and money. So we need to focus a little bit more about it. So this guy said, a user interface is like a joke. If you need to explain it, it's not that good, right? And that kind of makes sense. If you go on a UX, the best UX you have is actually, well, in your hand. Because it feels natural. Every day you swipe, you touch your phone. It's something that became natural, and even for little kids, right? They get iPads from the very second they were born right now, and they know how to use it even better than us right now. So it makes sense for UX, when it's good, to feel natural. And this is why, of course, the iPhone did a great job at that. So notable UX, we talked about the iPhone, of course, which introduced the finger touch. Before we used to have a stylus, and then the presentation of the iPhone in 2007 just revolutionized the industry forever, basically. But also, a few notable UX improvements could be the IR mouse. So before we used to have, there was no mouse, there was just keyboard, so it was very difficult to navigate. And with the IR mouse, not only was it cordless, but it was also very natural to move around because it's just a natural movement of your hand. It's not kind of discrete movement on a keyboard. And then as a last example, well, if you guys recognize this logo, it's the card swipe of Tinder. So also something that became very natural, but that wasn't used that much before. And now, even on Instagram, like Facebook, this kind of thing, you often have kind of cards, options, to select between yes or no, a positive or a negative action. And this is a very interesting UX that has been used more and more often recently. So UX innovations can have big impact. And in Web3, there's a lot of innovation to be made, so it's very exciting to be working in this and trying to find new stuff. There's Uniswap, who came up with the concept of swapping. Literally, it existed before Uniswap existed. On exchanges like Binance, but even on the stock exchange or anything. But Uniswap really revolutionized the Web3 industry by having a very simple UX of choosing your token in, token out, swap, you're done. And this is very good UX. Now let's talk about UX flows. We talked about the experience in general. Now what's a flow? A flow is if we focus on the part of the experience that defines what path a user is going to take to complete a specific action. In this case, it's using the entire product, but we will focus on the next few minutes on specific flows of any decentralized application. But this is what defines a UX flow. It's the complete path a user takes when using a product. So it can be made using wireframes, arrows. You have many different processes for designing this sorts of things. But it can be represented visually very simply. It doesn't need to be beautiful because we're talking about user experience. It just needs to be efficient and to the point. Now, the challenges of Web3 UX, this is a big one, and this is what we're going to focus on today. This is what we're all here for. So I discussed about Uniswap having great UX. And they probably encountered many challenges. We will see together that there are challenges that are technically, we need to work around them because we can't technically change them. The way Web3 is designed is that contracts on the blockchain, I'm not going to get too technical on this, but contracts on the blockchain are immutable. They cannot be changed, generally, right? You can still have upgradable contracts, but generally you can't change them. And that's the same for tokens. Who used stable coins in the room? Has anybody used stable coins before? Okay, cool, amazing. So basically, transferring money, whether it be wrapped Ethereum, all these tokens usually are ERC20s. And we're going to see that ERC20 has a lot of shortcomings and are pretty terrible for user experience. We're going to see that later. But yeah. Very good UX. SushiSwap has very good UI as well, so they made it very visually appealing, all the while learning from their kind of forked from Uniswap. So they did a great job at this too. First part is the onboarding of your users to Web3, and this is going to be a big thing. I really hope that your users are already comfortable with Web3. If not, if you're building a product, I've seen there's a new trend. I mean, it's not really a trend, it's more on the long term, but it kind of emerged recently, is the Web3 social part. With Lens Protocol, for example, we're seeing more and more big projects participate in the social space by developing new projects. And this is going to mean that a lot of people from Instagram, from Facebook, people who are not familiar with crypto are going to enter the space at some point. So how do you onboard these people and make sure that they don't get scammed, make sure that they don't get their wallet stolen, make sure that they don't do any transaction, that they don't want to do? And you need to teach them a little bit. So of course they need to do the research on themselves, but you can't really expect a user to just come to your app and then go to Wikipedia and start researching stuff. So you need to kind of have an onboarding. You need to define the words that are used in your application. In DeFi, it's even more hard because your user needs some kind of financial literacy. You can't just throw stablecoin. I mean, this one is actually quite understandable, but you can't just throw yield, farming, interest, option, rates. You can just throw these things at them. So you need to have some kind of tooltip or explanation or some kind of visual information, a model that when they open the app for the first time, they kind of get an onboarding process. So this can be very nice. They can have a tutorial, a kind of video tour. Just make sure that your user knows what they're dealing with. And even if you do this, you still need to explain throughout the application each step of everything that they're doing. So when they're approving a token, when they're sending a token, when they're staking, even the staking part, if I say staking to my grandma, do you think she will understand it? No, she is still using the bank regularly, so you need to instruct these people and teach them positively about Web3. And this is the job that we all have, especially those of us working in crypto, because it is what's defining the Web3 of tomorrow. And this is the kind of impression that we're giving on people. We need to give this good impression because recently there's been some very bad things happening in the market, and people, when they think crypto, they think price, they think speculation. So the crash of Luna, for example, was absolutely terrible for crypto because many people lost basically all their money, and so they just left. But as UX designers, as protocol developers, as project managers, we need to show these people that it's not just about dumping on each other's face. It's not about this, actually. It's really about building positive experiences and using the technology of Web3, of the blockchain, to build a positive impact on the world. It's kind of a generic sentence, sorry, but what I really wanted to mean is that we can build things that are owned by the community, and this is what Web3 is all about. So that's what we should teach users. So you got wallet, trade, decentralized, token, signature, gas. What is gas? What do I have to pay to upload my profile picture? What is this? Yeah, but come on, grandma, it's the blockchain. You don't understand. You need to pay. Nothing is free. Yeah, there is some kind of onboarding. So yeah. Also, don't give your key to the guy who called you for support, okay? Don't give it. Oh, I gave it too late. Oh, it's okay, grandma, next time. No, I'm really trying to talk about my, actually, I got this very interesting sticker, a very funny sticker from Alchemy. It says, my mom thinks I work at Bitcoin. And this is kind of like the state I am in right now. I'm trying to really, I've been working in DeFi for 1.5 years now. And it's been an amazing adventure. I wasn't into crypto before, I was more into game development. And so when I told my parents I was going to leave Amazon as a full-time engineer at Amazon, it's kind of like what I studied for the past 3-5 years. And I was telling them that I was just jumping into this Web3 thing with tokens and stuff. They didn't really understand. Well, they still don't really understand. But at least they get the idea and they kind of understand what I'm doing. But there is still the onboarding part of, okay, what are you really doing at APWine? You can get your salary in advance. Oh, okay, so that's better. And this is better UX, instead of saying APWine is a protocol for future yield tokenization. If I say this, everybody understands what it is? Okay, not a lot of people. Now what if I say APWine allows you to get your DeFi yield, your DeFi interest, in advance? It's more clear, right? So we need to think about how to abstract certain concepts, how to simplify certain concepts, without losing the meaning of it. You're not going to make an app where all the gas fees are hidden because it's too complex. No, you should still show it to the user, but in a more understandable way. So, for example, instead of showing GWay, you're going to show dollar because dollar is understandable by everyone. If you want to get even more involved, depending on the location, you might want to show euro, you might want to show dollar, you might want to show, Croatian crown. Depends on the user. Now, a very interesting part that I want to talk about is the smart contracts UX, because it all starts from the smart contracts. And I'm not going to dive too deep into, how to implement smart contracts, the technicality of smart contracts, but more about what impact has smart contracts on the final UX, on the final UX of your app. You need to understand that smart contracts, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Amazon, whatever, when you post a tweet, it goes to Twitter servers, right? And it's stored there. And so they have an entire interface, a developer interface, that connects between the application, the Twitter application on your phone, and their servers. You don't really see this part because it's like not as understandable, but it's basically HTTP requests, like internet requests, right? But you don't see this as an end user. And this is what we thrive, to do with smart contracts, is replacing the servers. So basically understanding that the smart contract is responsible for, usually storing, updating, all this kind of thing on your app. It all starts from the smart contract UX. So you need to design it in a very well, manner. So of course, the user interface still connects with the smart contracts, and that's why there's only literally this path to improve it. So it's usually kind of the bottleneck. And I'm going to show you guys why it's the bottleneck for many applications is the ERC20 definition, the ERC20 specification. So they came up with this specification where before spending a token, so imagine you go on Aave, right? And I'm not saying it's this on literally every DeFi protocol that uses an ERC20. So actually, DAI is not a good example because I'm going to show you later, but wrapped ETH, UST, USDT, this kind of thing are ERC20s. So they all have the same server interface, like I described before. So it's not possible to change it because it's the blockchain. So you need to work around it. You basically have a few methods, a few functions that you can call on this smart contract, and you can't change it. So they have this thing called approval. What is a token approval? Before depositing on Aave, you need to approve, whatever that means, your DAI, USDC, USDT, whatever. So you need to do 2 transactions. Approve, you need to first spend some gas, so spend some money on the approval, and then wait for the transaction to be finished. Okay, good, you're done, you finally approved. Then you need to send the transaction for the second, for the deposit, because you approved, so you can now deposit, and then wait for it to complete. So usually this takes quite a bit of time. Okay, arguably this is only the first time you enter the protocol, but if you do an infinite approval, sorry, I'm not going to lose you there, but there's 2 types of approval. Either, okay, it's kind of like if you go to your bank, you have a Netflix subscription, right? It's the difference between paying your subscription manually every month and authorizing Netflix to take from your account. So if you approve infinitely, you basically allow a smart contract to take your money anytime. And this is what 90% of users do. This is totally a number on top of my head, but this is what I see on most websites. By default, they approve everything. And if you don't see very correctly as a user, you can really get wrecked, because if you approve infinitely and then the smart contract gets hacked, well, your money's gone. So this is very interesting, and it's probably the source of many, many hacks in DeFi. And this is why hacks are also terrible UX, because we're not teaching our users what are the implications of what they're doing. And this is one of the things that we need to explain better. So instead of approving infinitely, maybe it's better to approve just what you need, because you can do this. You can approve 100 DAI and then deposit 100 DAI. But next time you come to the app, you will need to do it again. So 2 transactions again. This is why most degens, and myself included, just do infinite approval. And then you just make sure that you don't store all your tokens on the same address just in case something goes wrong. But still, it's not good UX. So this is what you're going to see on a lot of websites, basically every DeFi app before using it. So you go through the flow of approving and then executing the transaction. That's 2 transactions. Now, let's take a look at ERC 2612. And let's not get lost here. It's not going to get very complicated. It's just that USDC and DAI, for example, are this thing, ERC 2612. So this is just a tiny different specification that allows your users to basically approve without gas, without sending a transaction. So basically, they take a little bit of paper and they say, OK, I, Ulysse, authorize this protocol to use 100 DAI. They take this piece of paper and then they send it along with the transaction, so at the same time. And then the contract is allowed by the token to use it because they see the little piece of paper and they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. OK, he got the permit. So this is what we call a permit. You sign the permit and then you send a transaction. And this is a lot better because you're not making your users spend a lot of money for nothing. You're not making them wait for nothing. So it shows how important smart contract design at the core is important. Because if you don't design it correctly, you're going to make the end experience much more difficult. And see, whoever came up with the ERC20. So first of all, thank you, because it's used everywhere. But also, I don't like you, because you didn't put this permit in the first place. And by being the most used token of all time, ERC20, for years and years and years, you've made the experience of DeFi much more complex and often much less secure. So that's one thing. Just make sure that everything is designed correctly. And this is why we talk about smart contract design and not just programming, because smart contracts is a very difficult field also. So now let's take a look at a complex flow. And this is from the application that I'm building. It's called APWine. Oh my God. Oh my God, I didn't see. It is so sharp on this. And on here it's just a mashed pixel puree. OK. All right, I'll just, this is deposit, withdraw, trade, liquidity. So you have like a lot of actions that your user can do. And this can get very confusing. But at the same time, what we're building is not for the DeFi novice. It's really for someone who knows what they're doing, because even though you can do very complex stuff, the application is also very complex. And it's kind of a, this is also a very good practice for me to do this today, because I was thinking about a lot of things to improve on this. And so it's very good to have this discussion. I hope we can have questions afterwards and we can get a discussion going. But it's very interesting to think about how to simplify this complex flow. OK, so how do you get your salary, not salary, how do you get a fixed rate on your USDC, on your ETH, on APWine? It's going to get pretty intense. First, you need to approve. ERC20, come on. You need to approve. That's the thing. Then you need to deposit. Then you need to approve another time, because it's another token that you got. So you need to approve it again for this part. And then you need to swap. So that's 4 transactions. It's insane. And this is why there is so much potential in improving DeFi applications, because it's usually the case. Like APWine is not an outlier. Usually it's a lot of, if you want to become an LP, liquidity provider on Uniswap, you need to approve token 1, approve token 2, become an LP, and then maybe go somewhere else and stake your LP tokens. Oh, but to stake your LP tokens, you need to approve again. So approve, LP, approve, stake. That's 5 transactions. And by this time, by the 5th transaction, I've already lost my grandma. That's for sure. Like, she's not going to do this. So let's make it a little bit easier for her, even though I know she's not going to use this, but still. The simplified flow is going to be something that requires, first, less transactions and less clicks from the user. This is also a very important part. So when they go on APWine, and this is something we've released very recently, so now when they go on APWine and they click on what they want to do, we have set a predefined user path, because this is what users would take 90% of the time. So we kind of optimized this flow. And this is why we talk about UX, because UX is all about personas, user scenarios, and understanding your users, doing user research. And so we figured that most people were using APWine not to get a salary in advance, because that's what it can do also, but just to fix your rate. So instead of oscillating between 2% and 5% on Aave, because this is what happens, every day it goes like this, it's like a roller coaster. On APWine, you can fix your rate for an entire 3 months. So this is the interesting part. And to do this, we made it very easy through what we call a ZAP. A ZAP is a smart contract that uses one or more smart contracts to build a new interface. And basically, with only one function, it does a lot of things behind. Basically, it does a lot of transactions, right? It does all the 5th transaction that we talked about, but it encapsulates all this into just one transaction for the user. So that's very nice. This is a very interesting part that we can simplify, thanks to smart contracts in DeFi UX, in Web3 UX as well. So a good thing to keep in mind. And another interesting thing is that well, on Pixel 1, you can see that we define kind of the user paths, and we are showing them exactly which path they're going to take. Because depending on the amount, if you want to get your rate on 100 or 100,000, it's not going to be the same thing, the same route, because of gas, because of liquidity. I'm not going to get into detail. But basically, it does it automatically for you, which is amazing. And it shows you exactly where you're going to go. So here, you're going to go here. You're going to deposit, tokenize, swap, and then boom, you're done. But the user doesn't need to know about this. It's still important to show them, because they shouldn't be clueless. Okay, what am I doing? I mean, this is what most degens in DeFi care about, right? But still, it's important to show your users what they're doing, but simplifying it. And also, aggregators are a very good way to simplify UX. So there's this project called Paraswap. Have anyone heard about Paraswap? Okay, it's a very good project that aggregates liquidity on different exchanges. So basically, okay, on Uniswap, SushiSwap, everybody's familiar with these. Okay, sometimes you get a different price because it's not the same. Price is all about people buying and selling. So because there's not the exact same people, it's going to be a little bit different sometimes. But if you don't know where to go, you just go on Paraswap. And Paraswap has a smart contract that encapsulates all these and basically always takes the best price for you. So you don't even need to care about, where is the best price. Just go to Paraswap. And it shows you very nicely, where you're going to go with a visual, indication. So this is how we could simplify flows thanks to smart contracts, the UX of smart contracts. So yeah, the principle here is that you shouldn't hide, because of course hiding it makes it much easier for your user, right? Just deposit this amount of tokens and get this amount of tokens back. But really, you don't know where you're going, you don't know the risk, you don't know the implications. Maybe there's going to be slippage, maybe there's going to be price impact. You need to show these to the user, okay? Don't overload them with information, but tell them what they need to know. And this is very important, especially in Web3, where risk is omnipresent. So don't hide, abstract. Abstraction can be, abstracting the gas fee and just telling them that it's going to be in dollars instead of GWay, like I described earlier. This is an abstraction. Okay, let's try. So for this workshop, I kind of used APWine as an example of how we can simplify this. This application that is very complex. It has, well, here it's even more complex because you can't see anything, but yeah, it has a lot of information, as you can imagine, like tokens, rates, APR, LP, APY, and then you have all these tabs. It's very complex. It's a complex product. So how would we simplify this? And actually, I took this example, but I would be super happy to have this discussion going on. And maybe if any of you can tell me what's a DeFi or crypto application, Web3 application, that you found quite hard to use recently. Is there any that comes to mind? Curve Finance, right. Well, Curve Finance is a good one. Yeah, for sure. OK, let's check it out together. Oh, yeah, I mean. OK, yeah, it fits perfectly. Yeah, exactly. OK, so Curve has, OK, the first time I went on Curve, I was like, OK, what is this Windows 95 thing? Did my Mac just broke or something? Did they break my computer? But no, this is the real website of Curve Finance. Actually, I tend to like it now because I use it kind of on a weekly basis, and it really looks great. I think it's quite to the point, but we can simplify it even further. And for somebody who gets onboarded to DeFi, this is not a good UX because you have a lot of stuff, and even the UI in this case can be a little bit offsetting because you don't want to go on a Windows 95 where when at the same time you got Twitter with beautiful UIs, you got Facebook with beautiful UIs. This is kind of offsetting. Yeah. So how would we improve this? By taking a very simple example, Curve Finance is just an exchange. We could just take inspiration from what Uniswap has done. And basically, they're the same thing. Uniswap is even more complex because they have thousands and thousands of assets. But they decided to not show them at all like Curve is doing. So basically, Curve has a lot of what we call pools. A pool is a basket of items, and you can swap between items. So basically, you got you got DAI and USDC, so two stablecoins, and this is the pool of DAI USDC, and you can swap between any of these anytime you want. So they have a lot of these. You can also see all pools, and it can get pretty complicated. Actually, I'm just realizing that it looks quite similar to APWine, because the information is quite similar, right? You have the token, you have the description, and then you have all this information, the LP, the fees, all of this. Sometimes it's not something you want to see as an end user, especially if you just want to swap. So this is what Uniswap has done very beautifully. And what they do is you just select your input token, your output token, and you're done. You just swap. So for example, I select ETH, and then I'm going to get some APW. I put 10 ETH, and then boom, it's going to directly fetch me the best price, and I can swap right away. I don't need to go on the Curve Finance pool and go through all these mechanisms and very complex information. But at the same time, maybe they know their user is already quite advanced in crypto, and this is why they did it, right? But yeah, this is what I would suggest. Thanks for the example. If they really want to touch the market of retail, so people who are not yet onboarded to crypto, this is what Uniswap has done very beautifully. Just keep the information stupid simple. And for example, you can also see that they put the dollar value here, so you can directly get some feedback of, okay, I'm putting 10 of this token, whatever that means. Okay, it's worth 100,000 or 1,000 or whatever, so that I don't do any mistakes while swapping it, maybe by realizing that it was another token or this kind of thing. And actually, this is very interesting because if you go to OpenSea, okay, I don't think I'll find an example, but they took advantage of this bad UX of there's a lot of tokens and you don't know how much it's worth. Basically, on expensive pieces like the Bored Apes, the CryptoPunks, if you guys are familiar with these, some people put offers with DAI instead of ETH. And imagine you want to sell your ape, for 10 ETH. And they're going to put 9 DAI. And this is where it gets very interesting, because if, as an end user, you just got this for free and you don't know what you're doing, you see 9 and you're like, oh, it's pretty close to 10, what I wanted to sell it. No, you got $9, mate. You didn't get the 30,000 that you were planning to get. And this is where it gets interesting. And this is where we still have to improve. Make information very, very clear so that users don't lose money like this. There's thousands of examples of these in DeFi. Okay. Okay, that was a nice simplification. I just wanted to show you an example with APWine. So what I'm working on right now, and this is kind of some alpha for you guys, I've simplified this. So we're trying to simplify this UX into something that is very predefined for the user, because we know that 90% of users are going to do the exact same thing again, fixing your rate. Because risk is important. You don't want to risk. You just want to fix your rate. And so we turned this complex information into one simple page. We need to keep it stupid simple. It's a very important principle, very, very basic, but still nice to keep in mind. Usually, less is better, because if you want to put too much information, you're just going to overload the user with, too many things to retain at the same time. So usually, you just want to keep information very basic. And we simplified it into this page. So it just gets to the point. Okay, you can get your DeFi yield ahead of time. You just have two buttons, start and my positions. So one of them is highlighted with this. Well, we can't see anything here, but if you click on start, it's just going to present you with this screen where we made a selection of assets that are the most commonly used. So usually it's ETH, USDC because it's a stablecoin, and staked Aave because a lot of people are into Aave and it's pretty much used. And then we just highlight the APR. So the APR is the rate that you're getting. And this is the most important piece of information, because when you want to go on a website that provides fixed rate, you don't want to see all this. You just want to see what's interesting, the asset and the information of the rate. And so this is what we're trying to do. So yeah, this is how to simplify UX flows, usually by defining specific user scenarios from your community. You can ask friends, family to try out your application, and you can get some very good results. This is how we're also trying to improve conducting UX research on a daily basis, and basically trying to improve the experience as much as possible through simplification and not adding new features. Your product is good. It just needs to be better presented. And that's the thing that we learned the hard way. At APWine, we made a product that was very complex from the beginning, and that had two impacts. The first consequence was that we took a little bit longer than our competitors to go to the market, and so that gave them an advantage, in terms of first mover. When we launched, we were much more fully fledged as they were, but because we took a little bit of more time, they had the liquidity, they had the TVL, so this is something we also need to work around. And the second aspect is that users were lost, basically, because APWine is such a novel concept that you kind of need to get a first product that is very simple first, and then they kind of understand the idea, and then you can get more complex with this. So this is a lesson that we learned the hard way, because we spent a year building this and we launched, and it was a success, but just we could have done it even better. And this is why I'm sharing this experience with you guys today. Usually your MVP is the best way to go to the market. Don't spend too much time on building too many features at the same time. Just focus on one feature, and it's definitely going to get you where you want. And then once you release, and once you actually see user experience being done, and you can actually track metrics, and you can actually see who is using it, and then you can improve, right? You can ask your community, hey, how's it work for you? Oh yeah, but I think this would be better. Okay, let's move just a little bit. This kind of thing. You need to adjust, especially in Web3 where, goddamn, I've never seen an industry that moves so fast. It's very stressful. It's very stressful, but it's very nice to work in Web3. But still, it's a very positive thing, but at the same time, you need to just build 24 hours a day, or you're going to get behind the competition, you're going to get behind the trend, you're going to get behind all this. So yeah, just don't try to build too much. Just keep it stupid simple and go to the market, or go to the market. Just build your thing and make it as efficient as possible in a short amount of time. Right. Thank you very much for coming. This is the end of the presentation. I hope that you learned something new. It was a very nice experience to show, to introduce myself and share this experience with you guys. So I hope you liked it. And happy to answer any questions on this. If anybody who's working in the field may provide some feedback. You know, I have an engineering background, so I'm really not a professional designer, but trying to share as much as I can. So let's have a discussion. Thank you very much. Have a great conference, and have a great day. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you maybe talk a little bit how you do how do you do UX testing? I mean, it's hard to qualify like what's good UX, right? Optimally, what we would do is like in traditional platforms, you do like A/B testing. You would somehow measure like okay, which UX is actually more like with which UX version do the users interact better or stay more engaged on the platform. So do you have any ideas how to do this in Web3?
Okay, that's a very interesting idea. A very interesting point. So there's two things. First, to be transparent, I've never done it on a Web3 application. I have done it, at regular companies like Amazon and this kind of thing. But in Web3, I haven't seen it yet. You know, MetaMask has been around for years, and it doesn't look like they are doing user research, but not user testing. They're not doing A/B testing, as far as I know. So this is a very important point. The second point is because the blockchain is immutable. You know, it's hard to do A/B testing on smart contracts because it just wouldn't work. But on the app itself, it really depends on how you implement it. So if you're using a Web2 stack, technically speaking, if you're using like AWS, any regular provider, and not a blockchain thing like IPFS, you can definitely do A/B testing. And it doesn't really matter. You could definitely choose choose a user scenario and do it in two different ways. One that requires maybe 2 transactions, but that is more clear, and one that requires 1 transaction, but that is a little bit less clear, right? So you could try 2 different ways. And this is definitely possible with a Web2 stack. Now, if you're using IPFS, I know that Uniswap is probably using that. It will be a little bit more difficult, right? Because you have all this immutability thing. It's kind of like if Bitcoin was doing A/B testing on its users. It's a little bit more difficult, actually impossible. But if we're still leveraging the technologies of traditional Web2, definitely something that can be discussed. I would be super happy to know what you're working on, and if this is something you encountered in the project you're working on.
No, it's just
okay.
I would be interested in how you do it for. I also checked out your app.
Yeah.
If you just make best guess of what good UX is, or if you also measure what's the new like do we have like more users on the new UI, or if you do any kind of quantitative analysis.
Yeah, totally. So as I said, I'm not a professional designer. We're actually looking for a designer to join the team. So if anybody is interested into onboarding into Web3, we'd be super happy to discuss and see how we can work together. And to answer your question, yeah, it was a little bit of guessing. I actually love guessing. And this is why it ended up so complex. So this is the lesson that we learned the hard way, is that we build this app for people who are very much into Web3, into DeFi. And so we kind of overlooked that there might be people, we have a big French community through sponsorships, podcasts, and this kind of thing. And we often have French people coming and being like, hey, I'm new, I can't understand APWine, how does it work? And so this is why we're doing this at the moment. We're also working with agencies, to kind of do user research. And this is going to help define the user path and probably, do the A/B testing like you described. But we're not doing this at the moment, and this is what we learned. Yeah. Thank you for the question. If anybody has any feedback, discussion going on, we'd be happy to discuss. Yeah.
So you are not targeting just like technical people, but also like regular folks, or because you mentioned that you as a designer need to figure out how to hide some information, but I heard that some applications wants to hide some information, but like devs and some technical people don't really like that because they understand it, and if they don't have that information, they think that it's a scam or so. How to figure out which personas you are targeting?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Developers usually because we're head into the code all the time, we understand exactly what we're doing, and so we don't think it's necessary to remove anything. But on the design side, and because you care for your users as a designer, you want to not remove information actually. You just want to not even hide it, just simplify it, and this can be through also information hierarchy. So for example, the expiration date would be less important than the interest rate, right? So you can maybe put one in bold and black and the other in gray and thin. This kind of thing. So it's all about information hierarchy. In this, there's not a lot of information hierarchy, right? It's all on the same thing. All this information I'm talking is all on the same, path. But this one has more information hierarchy. Okay, here we're hiding a little bit of stuff. It's not really hiding, it's just that the persona doesn't need this information. But I don't think you should hide, just if you want to have a complex application, you can also have a pro mode. And this is something I've seen in DeFi applications more and more, is that for very complex stuff, because we're dealing with traditional finance tools, right? We're dealing with futures, options. How do you make futures and options accessible to people not in finance? This is very complex. You just can't by hiding information, because this would be an evil pattern, because you would be hiding stuff that they need to see. Expiration date, call, put, what is it? So not only do you need to teach them about the financial literacy, but you should also show them everything that they need. And so, yeah. A pro mode would be one option that you have. Are you working on a DeFi project at the moment?
No, I don't know much about Web3. So
Okay.
I'm in Web2.
Okay, designer in Web2. Cool. Which like industry?
Product designer at Infobip, omnichannel platform.
Okay, cool. Well, hope you made the jump to Web3 soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
I think first, do you have kind of the idea of how basically the users are accessing these generally Web3 protocols? So are they using the desktop or they're using mostly mobile?
Yeah.
And when they use basically the mobile phones for accessing different Web3 protocols, they usually use, I assume, the browser application.
Yeah.
Chrome. And then how do they sign the transaction? Do they usually use MetaMask application or the MetaMask browser? Is there some kind of very neat integration between the MetaMask or some kind of nice alternative?
Yeah, you figured it out. You figured no, that's totally it. So basically, you need to have a wallet on your phone. I mean, there's a MetaMask on iPhone, Android, and it has a browser inside of it, but I really don't recommend using it because it's slow as hell. Once you have MetaMask, there is this amazing protocol called Wallet Connect. Wallet Connect is like a server that connects your wallet and the application you're using. So instead of the wallet being a browser, you can have the wallet and your browser as two different applications. And once you go to Safari on your iPhone, once you have MetaMask installed, you go to APWine, you go to Uniswap, whatever, you select Wallet Connect, and then it switches the app to MetaMask, you connect, and then you're ready to use it. Now, I think the UX could be definitely improved on that aspect, because on desktop, personally, I'm having a much better experience than on mobile because of the app switching all the time to confirm transactions, to see the gas fees and all this kind of thing. So definitely, this is also something that Web2 has figured out. You don't have a Google application to sign in to Google, right? It just opens it in the browser. You put your email and password. You couldn't do this in Web2 because you would put your seed phrase or this kind of thing in Web3. So you would put your seed phrase. It would just not be secure. But there are some ways that projects are kind of building around this. And there is one thing that I can show you. It's called Magic Link. I really hope it's this, actually. Yeah, it is. Cool. Got lucky. Magic Link. So it's basically using your email. Haven't used it, but I think that's what it is. It uses your email as a wallet. So basically, it stores your seed phrase, I think, in a secure server, and then you can connect to any Web3 application using this protocol. Yeah.
And this wallet connect you were mentioning, does it work with other mobile apps?
Absolutely.
So it works. So you could have, for instance, APWine mobile app.
Yeah.
Download it, and then you could sign a transaction with this connection going through this
absolutely. And so when you, exactly, this is the screen that, right. Yeah. This is the screen that you're presented when you have any browser, any wallet on your phone, and you go to the browser to see a decentralized application. You click on Wallet Connect, and it pops up this model with Rainbow, Trust Wallet, Argent, MetaMask. So if you have any of these apps, it's going to switch to it, you connect, and then you go back to the browser. It's all right. It's better than the UX that we had before with MetaMask having a browser and like sluggish. So yeah, that's. I definitely think with Apple being more and more involved into crypto, they're hiring for crypto jobs, so that's a good thing. I really hope that they can get some kind of Face ID for Web3 authentication. That would be awesome. I mean, they need to make it more secure, of course, because you're dealing with a lot of money if you have all your capital in crypto. But signing in crypto through a native application with Face ID plus you have whatever Safari, logging in directly to your wallet, that would be an amazing UX. So I really hope they do it. Yeah. If you're here, we have.
I have a question as well.
Yeah. I'll get back to you after.
So the UX simplification that you did on your slide, so you said that you have like 5 transactions, right? And you abstract them between the new contract, like an aggregated contract that does the 5 transactions for you. Going back to the A/B testing thing, because it seems that you have to deploy a new contract.
Exactly. Yeah.
It seems expensive just to kind of not to be 100% sure that it works.
Yeah.
Why not just do like a Web2 service that does that, and when you're kind of sure that it works, deploy a contract? I mean, do you see any kind of downsides to that approach than deploying the contract? Instead of the Web2 service?
You're totally right. I wouldn't recommend doing A/B testing on smart contracts, but leveraging Web2 architecture to just do it on the app itself. Now, if you're on Polygon, if you're on a layer 2, I think it's okay to do A/B testing on this. But as I said before, it wouldn't really work because if you have 2 smart contracts, you're splitting the liquidity. For example, imagine Aave. I mean, this is what happens with the V1, V2, V3 of Aave. They have different markets. So you can't really borrow money on V3 and lend on V2, with the same proportions and the same ratio and this kind of thing. So it's really one smart contract is an application by itself. And this is what is interesting, but also some kind of workaround that we need to, try to think about. So yeah, leveraging Web2 architecture to do A/B testing because it's not currently possible with smart contracts. I mean, very sluggish and very expensive. Yeah, a very good point. Thank you. Yep, you had a question.
Yes. So years ago we had like Web2 applications, and when the iPhone came out and so on, basically every single company wanted to build a native app.
Yeah.
We now use mobile a lot, and I see that for Web3 we have a lot of browser applications, web applications like Uniswap and so on.
Yeah.
But when you use it on the mobile, the experience is not that good. You need this wallet connect and so on.
Yeah.
So do you think, or what's your opinion, I'm just curious about this transition to native apps, if this is something that you think could happen in the Web3 space, or it's not applicable?
So are you talking about performance, like performance in the browser, or the experience itself?
The experience.
I mean, it's part of it, but yeah.
I mean, like.
So okay, let's say you have a Uniswap native application. What would it do? Would it just allow you to connect your wallet, or would it have a wallet by itself?
No, allow it to connect your.
Okay, so in that case, I can only speak from my experience, but in my experience, hybrid applications would work very well. I'm a big fan of native applications because of the performance, but recently over the years, we've had web applications that can be saved to your home screen or even deployed to the App Store that also work very well. So to me, there is a very, very, very thin line between a native and a web application today. And it's going to get even thinner as we progress into this technology. So I don't think there will be a difference in the next 5 years. In the next 5 years, you wouldn't really know if you're installing a native application or a web application, right? And because it's very simple to just go on any app that supports this, technology of, how is it called? Hybrid app, and you can just install it directly. And the experience, once you've installed it, feels very native-like. if the UI is well made and this kind of thing. So yeah.
Basically, like the performance improvements you may get, for example, by using Instagram as a native app
Yeah.
as a browser.
Yeah.
It's not that much important in a Uniswap website, let's say.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Interaction you do is
Exactly. I mean, I haven't tried the native Uniswap application, but
Is there one?
no, I haven't tried it because there's none. But I think it will be very interesting to. I think also Web3 is all about this. It's all about like sharing, not relying on a central app store for this. So it's very interesting to just go on any app in your browser and be able to go to thousands of DeFi applications available on the internet. So yeah, I think that the line is going to just fade out progressively. Yeah. Yeah.
Any ideas how to handle waiting on UI, because we always have to wait for a transaction to
Yeah.
finish for indexing.
Yeah.
And we usually show just on spinner or
Yeah.
logout with spinners and
Yeah.
message, but sometimes it just takes too long and
Yeah.
user is confused. And
That's a very good point. Yeah. Well, this is the $1,000,000 question. If you find out how to, yeah, I mean, there will be UX innovations in that way. I may look like a Uniswap fanboy, but I'm just a very big fan of their code base. It's the cleanest I've ever seen, and the UX is very clean. So let me just show you one last thing. What Uniswap is doing for this, if you've ever used it with the loading components. So, okay, I don't have internet, sorry. So basically, when you go on Uniswap and you send a transaction, not only does it show that you can click on the Explorer to see it, so you can monitor how it's going. Is it going to pass? Is it going to not pass? But also you can see all your pending transactions. So you can see all the actions that you've done, sorted by time, and you can see exactly which are pending, which have completed, and this kind of thing. I think this is a very good first step, but maybe MetaMask, the wallet itself, could do more improvements to kind of improve the experience on that aspect. When you send a transaction, you don't exactly know what you're doing if you're not looking at the website. If you go to MetaMask in your history and you just see all the labels, like what was this, what was that, what did I do here, I don't remember exactly. So you need to go to the Etherscan, to the Explorer, and see exactly, oh yeah, I remember it was a swap, blah, blah, blah. So maybe this could be improved. There's a lot of improvement on the wallet side too. Yeah. But yeah, happy to chat, if you have any ideas, if you want to discuss a little bit more about this. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Well, thank you very much again for coming to this. I hope you learned something new. Good discussion all around, and I thank you for your time. So have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.